Coach, first week through practice, what are your thoughts so far on what the offense is running?
I thought practice one, we had a really good practice as far as getting things in. You got to understand, we're kind of in the middle of a 5-day install offensively. We got a lot of new faces offensively and a lot of new offensive linemen. We obviously got a healthy competition at quarterback. We got new receivers, several new tight ends, and so, there's always going to be a time in spring ball and the beginning of fall camp where it always feels like the defense is ahead of the offense. And it feels like that right now as well for us. But I would say that day two was not quite as clean as day one for us. And then today, we don't want to make too many comments about today until we go evaluate the video. We had some guys open sometimes that we missed, and we had some things that we missed every once in a while up front. But that's what this is for, to get things cleaned up and get things ready to go for fall camp.
How different is the approach this spring without having experienced faces that you've had in your system for so long, like Poppy and Stowers?
Well, that's the thing. When you have a returning starter at center and quarterback, when you have those guys, there's a comfort level there that's just hard to duplicate, Now we don't have our starting center, we don't have our starting quarterback, so we've got competition at all those positions. So there's a learning curve, okay? And so you got to kind of start from ground zero and then work your way up. That's why we'll go through the 5-day install several times before we get into fall camp. But that's the beautiful part about this time of year is, we want every practice to be very intentional, but we also know that there's not going to be a score or a game at the end of this, okay? So it's all about improvement, and making sure that we're, becoming more technically and fundamentally sound.
What have you seen from Cole's bench this week? I know with Eli leaving, it's an opportunity for him to step up and be a bigger part this year. What do you think about it?
I think Cole will have a great year. I thought he had a really good year last year as well. He does a lot of different things for us than what Eli does, but again, we love using tight ends in our offense. And so that's a huge thing. We've got some young tight ends that we're growing up, but I expect Cole to have a great year, and super excited about watching him this fall.
Obviously, you guys have lost a lot of big pieces on offense, and there are people out there who might say, "Well, Diego's gone, Eli's gone."
Yeah.
How do you? I know you guys don't think about that much internally, but there's that perception. What is your inside perception on that?
Yeah, the inside is 100%. We absolutely lost a lot of production off this offense from a year ago. But here's the neat thing about it is we lost 4 starters in the offensive line, but we feel like just being year 3 in what we do offensively, that we're farther along as a team offensively than we were even a year ago at this time. So we've got a lot of new things that we're looking at and trying out, and that's what spring's for, is to experiment a little bit. But we still have to find, who are the guys that we need to get the ball to, and that's why there's competition at all spots. And that's why it's so important to understand that every team's going to take on its own personality, and it's our job as coaches to make sure we're finding ways to get the ball in the right people's hands.
Coach, yesterday pro day, seeing Eli and seeing Diego out there, doing what they do in front of 31 of 32 NFL scouts. What was your thoughts and takeaways on them and what they showed yesterday?
I was so happy for them. We were part of the process at New Mexico State when we recruited Eli to come in and play quarterback. And so, what people have to remember is he's actually only been playing the position for 3 years now, or 2.5 years. And so it was so exciting to see both Eli and Diego, do a really good job at the combine and then have a very good pro day along with some of our other players. Coach Lee mentioned to me, it wasn't very long ago they had pro day here and there wasn't anybody here hardly. And we had a great representation by the NFL. Very excited for all of our players. I think it's something for our young players to see, okay, this is how pro day goes and what I have to be prepared for. So, but for those 2 guys especially, we were super proud of them and super happy for them as well.
I'm curious, when you have a highly touted quarterback coming in like Jared, you have some guys who've been here for a while. How do you guys handle that dynamic with those guys? Because Jared's going to be the one who's going to get a lot of the attention.
Yeah.
I know you guys don't know who's going to start yet, but like, how do you handle that internally in terms of just, making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Well, Coach Lee always talks about how reps are gold, and so our quarterbacks understand how important each and every rep is. So we got 4 quarterbacks, and as of right now, they're all getting equal reps. Okay, because of the competition that we have, we're not going to shortchange anybody. We want to make sure everybody has that opportunity. And it's a time for growth for Jared. He's brand new. He's learning a new system. We can't expect him to walk in here day one and know everything that we do, because it's not going to happen. So we got to give him a chance to grow, and we got to give a chance. The competition that we have in that room has been awesome. So really got a good group of quarterbacks that we're working with, and excited about the future with all of them.
Talked about some playmakers that departed. There are a couple of guys that have come in this offseason. I'm interested to hear your thoughts about tight end Javante Connor from ECU.
Javante Connor is, again, the huge learning curve for him, because a lot of this is new to him. So they got to go from forgetting everything they not learn, but as everything they did as far as schematics and verbiage of what we do, and then learn it at a new program. So he's learning. He's very talented. So we just got to continue to teach him and get him where he's more comfortable, so he can play faster.
And then one more question on the tight end room. Noticed a position change from Bryson Coleman, tight end to wide receiver. What was kind of the thought process behind that?
Well, initially, we thought Bryson would be a tight end, and it's one of those things where he's so fast, and it maybe is not in his physical makeup to be big enough to be a tight end. And so he's fast, and he can do some things. He played the tight end position here like a receiver, and so I think it was just kind of common sense for us to put him in that position. We needed an extra long guy outside, and Bryson's got very deceptive speed, and I think it'll be something that we can utilize offensively.
Coach, how important really is it this year for the run game to be the best it's ever been around here with the new quarterback? And I feel like a great friend to a quarterback is a great run game. Of course, you got Steady and MK back.
That's exactly right. And again, Coach K does a fantastic job of coaching the offensive line. Super important for us to be able to establish the run game, especially early in the season. But we feel like our running back room is really good, starting with Steady and MK, and those guys are a year older, you're stronger, you're faster, all those things. So Steady and I had a good talk yesterday. I feel like he's improved every year that he's been here. I can see improvement in him this spring over even last fall. So we're excited about that room, and obviously those are guys that we need to find ways to get the ball to.
How much changes when you have a guy like Diego, guys like who, you obviously were around him for a long time. I'm not saying you don't have to coach as hard, but you've got is there a lot of different style quarterback than Diego, Diego, obviously. How much do you have to change your game plan and your schemes and stuff like that?
Yeah, and I think, again, that's part of recognizing who you have and what are their better traits. And so Diego happened to be a guy that was really good at running the football. In some ways, he looked like a running back at times playing quarterback. And so we were not afraid to run him, because even though some people would say, oh, man, you can't let your quarterback get hit that much, but here's a guy that, was a tough physical makeup that we could do things with. Now, the next group, the guys that are competing, it may not be in their best interest to run the ball as much. So we do need to be aware of that and be, have the ability to change a little bit what we do offensively.
We'll go last question right here.
Yeah.
They might not have the glitz or glamour of a quarterback battle, but there's a lot of big positional battles on the offensive line. What have you seen from both the new additions to that room as well as the returners?
Really happy with the guys that we brought in and that we recruited. I also think that our freshman class is very exciting, because we've got some guys that I think are going to be great players here. They just need time to develop, and they just need to come out here and continue to practice and get the reps. And we've got to let Steiner and his staff, really work those guys over and get them bigger and stronger. But we've got a great starting point with the guys we brought in. As of right now, we're very happy with who we have.